Hi, my name is Caleb Fletcher, and this is my swine safety and ethics presentation. So today's objectives are, by the end of the lesson, you should know how to safely handle and move pigs, how to properly give medications and read the labels for those medications, as far as knowing the withdrawal times and dosage and whatnot, and then also the ethical responsibilities that come with showing swine. So now we're going to talk about why safety matters. So whenever you get a show pig from your breeder, it can weigh anywhere from 60 to 80 pounds on average. But when you get closer to your slaughter date or your show date, your pigs can weigh 250 plus pounds. So I don't know about y'all, but if a 250 pound animal stepped on my foot, even though it's just a pig, most people think that a pig would hurt a far less. I'm sorry, I don't know what this is. People wouldn't think that a pig stepping on your foot would hurt as much as it does, but it really can hurt, and it has punctured blood vessels in my feet before, which don't feel very good. And then on top of that, if an animal is stepping on you, your initial reaction is gonna be to either push it, sometimes kick it, or some form of harm to that animal just because you're trying to get it off of you. So that can cause harm to not only yourself, but the animal itself. And then with that, it can cause a lot of stress, which is going to make the animal stress out. And then some pigs can have a stress gene, which can kind of make them go a little crazy. And then it can also affect their meat quality. So now we're going to talk about a real world situation, and I'm sorry, I can't read backwards, so I'm just going to have to turn the computer a little bit. But it says, according to the National Library of Medicine, I'm not sure I can't really see my screen, so I hope you can see it. Among swine production workers, these exposures may result in chronic and acute respiratory conditions such as asthma, bronchitis, chronic obstruction pulmonary, I'm sorry, I don't know how to say that word, disease, COPD, coughing, I actually don't know how to say that word either, pneumonia, throat irritation, sinus problems such as sneezing, noise-induced hearing losses, and increased work days. So I included this just because a lot of people don't understand the fact that just simply being around these animals can cause a lot of health issues. Especially for me, I've never really had health issues, but when I did have animals, or swine in particular, I had to do a lot of shavings, like pine shavings, and that can cause a lot of sinus problems. So that's as far as my extent went with it. But it can, when you're around a larger number of pigs, like if you're up in Indiana or Ohio or Illinois, where you have those big operations, and you're around hundreds, if not thousands of swine, you're more likely and susceptible to those certain diseases or whatnot. So I included some pictures of actual pig attacks. So in this picture, although I believe most of these were wild boars, but it's still a pig attack, I guess. So in this one, you can see where the actual pig stepped on it and whatnot and bit him. And then on this one, you can see where there's more cuts and bites and whatnot in their arms. And then this is just a fun fact: swine will eat your entire body, including your bones. So you should be very mindful and careful around animals. So now we're going to talk about handling and moving swine, because I included this picture. I'm sorry, I have to turn around because I can't. I have a screen here, but it's not working. But so this is their flight zone. So when you're moving the animals, you should move calmly and slowly just to avoid them scattering or whatnot. And then you should also avoid their blind spots, which is behind and directly in front of them. So whenever you're directly in front of them, they can't really necessarily see you because their eyes they have wide foreheads. So like, here's just an example of a picture of a pig I had. You can kind of see, I'm not sure how well you can see it either, but their eyes are on the far side of their heads, kind of like a horse. And then when you're moving swine, you should never grab them by the tail or the ears or the legs. Although a lot of people do, but we really shouldn't. And then next we're going to talk about some moving tools. So this is a paddle, and this is a sorting board. So paddle is more or less just if you're moving them down a line and you're just trying to get them to go down, whether it's like an aisle or whatnot. And then like a sorting board is if like, so you see these a lot in like county fair settings, to where if people or like pigs are fighting in the ring or whatnot, they'll slide a board between them just so that they'll split them up or whatnot. But you can also use them to push them down aisles and whatnot. And then now we're going to talk about administering medication. So you should always check the label and dosage when giving medication. Make sure that's in date. Make sure that you're giving the right amount for how much your pig weighs. And then there's different types of shots that you can give. So I'm sorry, I can't read it. So there's the IM, which is intramuscular, and then which is like in the muscle, and then we have one that's under the skin. And you should always use needles safely, and always put them in the sharps container when you're finished with them. And like I said, you should always follow the withdrawal times. So now this is like just a image of different ways that you can give shots. So we have the intramuscular, which is going to be into the muscle. The subcutaneous, which is into the skin. We have the intravenous, which is into the vein itself. And then the intradermis, which is into the skin. Okay, so now we're going to talk about administering medication and how to read a label. So this is a label for Banamine, which is kind of like Tylenol for pigs. So we can see here underneath the residue warnings that it said swine must not be slaughtered for human consumption within 12 days of the last treatment. So essentially what that means is if you use on November 1st, you should at least wait until November 13th to slaughter that animal to ensure that all that medication is out of the animal and that you're not consuming any medication. And then under dosage and administration, it says the recommended dose for swine is 1 mg, 2 milliliters per 100 pounds. So if your pig weighs 200 pounds, you're going to give 4 milliliters. And then this is just the distribution, who it's made by and whatnot. And then, so this one is for intramuscular. So you would want to make sure that it's put into the muscle itself whenever you're administering that medication. So now we're going to talk about ethics in show swine. So you shouldn't ever use any banned substances or body altercations. So that goes for like Georgia National Fair or just Georgia National Fair and the state show. So a lot of you're not supposed to administer any medication from my understanding, although I've never shown there, so I don't 100% know. But from my understanding, you're not supposed to be administering any medications or anything like that, and they will drug test. And they do that at national shows as well. And then you should always provide humane care at all times. So that's just making sure that you're not pulling on their ears, their legs, or tails, or whatnot to try and move them. You should always use the paddle or the sorting boards to move those animals. You should always follow show rules and industry rules. So you shouldn't be trying to enter a crossbred into the hamps or whatnot, or the hamps into the crossbreds or whatever. You should always make sure that you're doing what you're supposed to do. So here's another example. Same pig. She was a purebred influence. She was solid white. She was half crossbred, half purebred York. So although she looked like a purebred York, she was a crossbred influence. So she should never show with the purebred Yorks, because she would have an unfair advantage, because we all know that crossbreds are better than Yorks. or purebreds. And then this would be my time for any questions or whatnot. And then I would move into my mini CDE, which I was going to do. This is not going to take very long just because I don't have time to do it with the actual classmates or whatnot. I was going to do an ID from it. So I was going to have like an ID of what the sorting boards are, the paddles. It's an empty page. I was going to have a question for the intramusculars or the different types of shots and whatnot. And then I was going to have that label, and I was going to give a scenario question of if your pig weighs this much, how much you should be doing for dosage and all like that. So although it didn't take 10 minutes or however long it's supposed to take, I couldn't because I don't have the time or the classmates to do it.